right? So it really does show that there is not as many opportunities there as in other places. And it also happened that in the same newspaper, there was this article about this Emirati web app developer who's developing an app in Arabic. And the article made a big point of emphasizing that because there aren't enough apps for our students and for learners in Arabic. All about developing soft skills, critical thinking, professional communication, and these sorts of things. And these are the skills that this class that I was teaching were teaching. And so I was trying to make the point with the students that look at the efforts your government's going through to try to get you those necessary skills that you have when you go forward after graduation. There was also another point in the article where it talked about the 20,000 new jobs that were being opened up in the UAE government in the coming years as well. So a lot more opportunities if the students were willing to step up, right? Take what we're learning on board and move forward. And so just thinking about me bringing that into a class, I was just wanted to think more about these values, how we talk about those in class, what do other teachers do, whether it's the same or different. Okay, so that's where I started with this. And then with some reflection, started thinking about why I care about this and how it appeals to me, right? So here you can see what we're gonna do today. I mean, basically, my approach as a person, I'm a bit of a storyteller. Okay, I was also, before I was a teacher, I was a youth soccer coach, and so there's a lot of extra lessons that go on when you're teaching youth sports, whether it's responsibility or teamwork or discipline or respect or a lot of these sorts of things. And I've tried to bring that over as I'm a teacher, as I'm teaching. Right, so the first one, just for everybody, the white text on the black background typically has a bit better visual appeal, right? Our eyes focus on just the letters, right? This was in a TED talk called Death by PowerPoint. So if you've ever seen that, it's a useful thing to check out. All right, so it's on YouTube. You can check that out. All right, so let's talk about the literature just for a second, right? When I first approached this, it was with a bit more focus on values, and that may changed a little bit over the data analysis, but there's obviously been a lot of research on that as a topic in our classrooms. The last article down there is quite an interesting one, and it's this idea of explicitly compared to implicitly teaching values and ethics and moral behavior in the classroom. So I'd recommend seeking that one out. I enjoyed that one. Okay, the first article there by Borg, teacher cognition, is also a really interesting one when we reflect on our teaching, right? Where do our ideas come from? The two that I would focus on in this presentation are our context and our background as learners. And we'll touch on that a little bit later as we go. Okay, obviously there are issues when we're thinking about values that we're putting forward to our students, that we're promoting to our students, and whose values they might be. But at least here in the UAE, there is a lot of movement in the Ministry of Education and in graduate outcomes for moral behavior, ethical behavior. The article there by Shaitan Seren, who's at Zayed University, is a really interesting action research project where she tried to explicitly include ethics instruction in her classes and found that there was a positive benefit in what she called social responsibility competence on the part of her students. So an interesting one as well to check out when she publishes. And then the last article there about the role of teachers in the UAE. These are a few of my colleagues at HCT, and very interesting survey of their students and their relationship with their teachers. And it really emphasized how much the students want to feel cared about, and how the majority of the students surveyed looked at their teachers as parental figures, right? Which really weighed on me a lot when I read that. So another good one to check out if you're out there looking. Okay, where the data comes from in this study, this was from my doctorate, and I've only pulled out just a little bit from these semi-structured interviews related to our approach to classes, to teachers' approaches to classes. They were, like I said, interviews with 20 different participants teaching all across the GCC. All expatriate, but I did try to get a wide variety of backgrounds. So I have teachers in the survey that were from the United States or from England or India or Iran or Syria or South Africa. So a wide variety of backgrounds and all across the GCC. So we tried to diversify that a little bit, okay, just in the interest of validity in these things. Okay, but when it came to this presentation, what I was really trying to do was go back into that data, look for this question and see, all right, what kinds of things did the teachers talk about when it comes to these sorts of values that they put forward to their students. After going through all the data, these are the 5 themes that developed. And so we'll talk about each of them in turn and look at what some of the teachers said. Again, I forgot to mention, these are all teachers working in higher education, either in bachelor's programs or foundation programs. So starting with empathy, I think the teachers that looked the most settled and sounded the most satisfied professionally and in a good place with their teaching were the ones that expressed a bit of empathy for their students, right? That did try to understand where their students are coming from. So if they're not getting the feedback that they want from their students, there could be other reasons than just they're lazy or I'm a bad teacher, right? So always important to understand, ask, seek out some of that information. The next quote I found funny because this teacher had a lot of sympathy for her students, right? Talking about how, well, they're in the foundations program, obviously they need these skills, but all they want to do is get in and start studying IT or engineering or these kinds of things. And certainly understanding that side of your students' motivation is going to affect how you interact with them, and hopefully in a positive way. The majority of the participants, though, did talk about this side of empathy for their students. The idea that they're coming from not entirely English as an environment to being kind of overwhelmed by English, okay, and being really surrounded by it, and in a lot of cases not being equipped properly to be able to study in that environment, right? And certainly trying better to understand and not just compare them to our students back home and say, well, why aren't they this good? Or why are they like this? Okay, so it certainly comes in the language aspect, but as well as the studying aspect, right? Their study skills, their approach to doing activities, their approach to group work, and all these sorts of things. We can all usually take a few minutes, right? Pull back, right? And try to understand where they're coming from, right? I'm bringing it up myself just because I had an experience just about 2 weeks ago in one of my classes where my students were writing essays. They put them in groups, right? It's of course all online. So they were doing it on SharePoint, right? So I could see the documents as they're developing. In several of the groups, they weren't writing in the document, they were taking big chunks and pasting it in. And it's possible they're working on their own computer and then transferring it over. But of course, as soon as I searched them, right, it would come up UK essays or one of these other websites that, oh, find an essay about obesity or whatever the topic happened to be. And so my first impulse is to yell, right, and go after them. And of course, I'm commenting, saying, please don't copy, right? This is your practice, right? You need the practice. But certainly, it did start to occur to me as I was not really getting very far with them. Is there is a background here, and it's possible that they haven't gotten this imposed on them enough. They haven't been told this enough, right? They haven't been taught enough about what plagiarism is, about what the benefit of this practice is. So what I tried to do was to approach it in that way. So the next class, I made a model essay as a reading task and also as a model, and it was all about plagiarism, okay, and about this as a problem, and why is it a problem, and how can we fix it, and these sorts of things. Hopefully, it's difficult again without even seeing their faces to know how much they took it on board. But at least now there's a record, right? I've got that text right there, so they can see it, right? They can refer back to it. And it's also a nice opportunity to expand their horizons a little bit, okay? It gives me the chance to talk about my background a little, right? So there's a picture of my university. I do enjoy sharing those pictures and my background, right? Showing them different places where their teachers come from, especially because it's green, right? It's snowy, right? It's really pretty. Students usually react to it. But on the other hand, as well, it's just to let them see that people think differently in other places. Okay, and at my old university, it's a single sanction setup. So the honor code basically says if you get caught cheating on anything, then you're expelled. Right? There's no middle ground. Okay, so not there to again to raise my fist at the students, but just to show them that it is a serious thing and it's treated differently in other places. Okay, the next theme is being a good example. This is one thing that we're professionals, right? Everybody who's here, right? This is providing a good example. You might have even told some of your students, oh, I'm presenting this weekend, oh, I'm attending this conference, right? This sort of thing. This teacher talked about playing the game right. And they had expressed some frustration over teachers who don't. Okay, whether it is about being on time to lessons or other things, right? The one thing, trying to put this into our current context, okay, Dr. Sufyan was talking about it this morning, and being online, and it's easy to just roll out of bed, okay, and not approach it with the same level of professionalism. Okay, oh, my internet isn't, hopefully it's going to stay. Okay, because we've done it. You don't have to get up and shower and put on your best clothes and drive to campus and go do all your things, right? There's the other case as well, just about the example we're setting here, right? The document that Melanie sent out yesterday or the day before, just with advice about how your screen looks, right? Think about your light and your backgrounds, okay? Well, this is the first time I've seen something like that. It's great, right? But a lot of us, we've just been thrust into this online teaching without much direction over something like that. And we can certainly see, right, that I can gesticulate, right? We can see my whole thing. The background doesn't interfere. Okay, I've raised my laptop up a little bit so you're not looking down my nose, and it's worth it. Okay, and it again provides that good example. Students can see it. They can see the time that you've taken to prepare, just in simple ways. Okay, obviously responding to emails quickly, okay, and that sort of thing, showing that you're interested in their questions and their comments. It's going to go a long way, right? You're teaching them that they're important. Okay, the last one I really loved, just because this teacher talked about unmet expectations in a positive way, right? That when they first arrived to the GCC, that they had a stereotype in their head about their students, and actually the students were great, right? And it's the best part of their day. And so certainly you can imagine what it's like being in that teacher's class, right? If they're saying, this is the best part of my day, there's a smile. Okay, again, you're putting a message across to students, right? So especially when we're online and you don't see them, you can't see how they're interacting, it's harder. Okay, but worth thinking about it as we go, and remember, yeah, I like this, right? This is different than what I used to do, and I don't like it as much, but I do like this, right? It's why we're here. It's why we took this job in the beginning. When it comes to giving back grades and marks, it was a pretty large majority of the participants in the study that hated it, right? They said it was stressful, whether it was because there was pressure from the students, course evaluations and these things, pressure from the administration, okay? I heard quite a lot, okay? The only thing that I'm here to talk about, though, is how some teachers took that and then were able to kind of help them help others, right? They felt like it made them better teachers, right? So their approach to grading changed over the time, right? So for one, just providing more information about the grades, right? Where is this grade coming from on the rubric? Okay, that was a good one. Giving the students some voice, right? This teacher talked about making appointments with students if they wanted to talk about their grades, right? Sit down, let's go through the rubric, let's see where the grades come, and we'll talk about it, okay? And whether she changes or not, at least the students feel like they've been listened to, right? That they do have some kind of a voice. The last one I particularly liked because of the additional skill that it pulls out of the students. So this teacher talked about how they basically won't just discuss a grade with a student, right? If you've got an issue with an assignment or a quiz or something like this, then you've got to email this teacher. You've got to send this formal email, refer to the rubric specifically, refer to your assignment where you think that maybe you deserve more points. And then there you go, and you have that conversation or that dialogue, as the teacher called it. And I think another side of that is that probably would eliminate a lot of the frivolous kinds of appeals where they just say, oh, it's too low. So, all right, personal responsibility. Personal responsibility. Again, we're all teachers. I think we all do demand students to show that they're responsible, to be accountable. But the teachers in the study who showed a bit more flexibility with that, right, who did a bit more awareness that they're not back in England or Egypt or Canada or wherever else, and did show an appreciation for different students' approach and being able to work with them a little bit. Those are the ones, again, who felt, at least it seemed, had a bit more professional satisfaction. The other side of responsibility is how we treat the best students, okay? Because a lot of our attention goes to the negative students, the at-risk students, the students who aren't doing the work, right? The students who are sitting on their phones, the students who aren't logging in on time, right? The students who are in ours, right, we do breakout groups and you can see who doesn't have their microphone turned on, or I can see who's not doing their activities. And that's where your attention goes, right? Because you say, come on, you've got to do the activity. Okay, but we are doing a disservice to the best students, the hardworking students, if we ignore them entirely. So this teacher talked about sending them emails at the end of the semester, just thanks, great job, right? Don't lose that fire kind of a message, right? And that's something that I have started doing my own practice, and I get great, beautiful emails from the students after the fact, right? So it is a really nice professional affirmation as well. Okay, but don't wait till the end of the semester, I would say, right? Definitely reward them, even if a student is just, you know, chatting back and giving you answers, right? Those students need to hear, oh, great job, Aisha, as well. Good job, Marion. Thanks, you know, thanks for your help. All right, mobile phones. Mobile phones, oh, mobile phones. Okay, personally, well, I will get to my personal opinion in a minute. The participants were split down the middle pretty much, right? With a half that thought it's something we can work with, and another half that hated them. Okay, this particular teacher just talked about scheduling it into their activities, right? Here's your reward, you get 5 minutes or however many minutes just to get on your phone, check your messages, okay, now put them away. Okay, I haven't tried that myself, but it worked for that teacher. Okay, several of the teachers talked about taking mobile phones. Almost all of them talked about how they didn't like it, right? They didn't feel like that was the right approach for it. For me personally, I basically put it out there at the beginning, right? And tell students, look, here's an example. This is one of my old colleagues used to do something like this, where they would take attendance with mobile phones. Right, so each slot had a student's name on it, and you're absent if your phone is not in your slot. Okay, and so just with that hanging over the heads, at least when I was doing in-person classes, it did seem to have an effect. Nowadays, now that we're online, this is more of the issue. Okay, it's the mobile phone as a distractor. Okay, so this particular teacher, they did a survey amongst their students because they were really not happy with the phone use and behavior with the phones, and found that a majority said that 10 to 15 times a class, okay, they would be checking their phones, okay, and what a negative kind of distraction that is. The other result in the survey that I thought was really interesting was that in her survey, that over half of the students that she surveyed said, you know, if you took my phone away, it'd be a good thing, right? I think I would be more peaceful. I'd be happier. Okay, it is almost half that said they'd be angry and irritated, but still, that's a surprising result for me that more than half showed a bit of awareness that this thing is maybe not the best for me while I'm trying to focus. What I'm going to talk about now, just for a second, this is my public service announcement about mobile phones, because I am very much like that last quotation. I hate them with a passion, right? I do think that they're a very negative thing for us. I think talking to you, all of you who are there watching me or listening or watching on YouTube if you're a teacher, right? Look around. Is your phone sitting on your desk or your table? Is it in your hands? Yeah, thanks, Moody. Because if it's on your table, or worse, if it's in your hands, you are setting yourself up for failure, right? You're setting yourself, oh, good, Shelley. Okay, you're setting yourself up to be distracted, right? Because the second that speaker gets boring, right? The second that your phone beeps, right? That's where your attention's going, right? And we can't help it, right? It's right there. Oh, it's got to be something important, or oh, this guy, let's listen to him. Okay, no, I'm going here. Okay, so think about that just for a second, because you know, I want to make sure, right? All of us, we're old. Okay, we didn't grow up with mobile phones at our fingertips from the age of 3. Okay, we're professionals. You're paying for this. And I will bet you that over the weekend, how many of us have been taking these things out and over? Okay, so good, Amira. So I strongly recommend, and I do it to my students on a regular basis, take that phone, go put it on a desk, right? Go put it on a shelf away, put it somewhere else, put it in your bag, okay? But don't keep it close to you, because if it's in your reach, you're gonna reach for it, right? That's just that's my approach. That's my, like I said, my public service announcement for the presentation. As I said, a lot of the participants in my study didn't feel the same way, okay? And they said, oh, that these students there are adults. They can decide themselves. If they decide that this is what they want to do, I'm not going to stop them. And I like the thinking behind this. I disagree, but I do like the thinking behind this first quotation here, because the teacher says, hey, the students that are doing the work, they appreciate it if I don't waste my time with the jokesters over there who are playing whatever they play nowadays, or PUBG or their Snapchat, I don't know, okay? So everybody has to make that own decision, make their own decision, make their own choice in how they interact with it. But I said my part. All right, the one thing I would say, as this last quote is saying, for me, it's not our only job just to teach English, right? It is teaching how to behave as an adult, right? How to manage your attention. So I think if we're allowing phones, if we're not, thank you, Amjen. If we're not just letting them know that it can pull their attention away, then I think maybe we are doing a bit of a disservice. Okay, so I think there's just 2 more themes left. So the first one just has to do with pushing students out of their comfort zone. And a lot of the teachers talked about the standardization that's happening in their programs and how that's a lot harder. Okay, so this is one way to bring things in from the margins, okay, to push them to demand a little bit more when maybe our curriculum is being set by somebody else, and they're not pushing the students enough, in your opinion. But again, this is opinion. All right, I do really like this last approach here, right, where the teacher was talking about an over-reliance on teachers and their instruction and giving them this guidance. And I can certainly relate. Okay, I did a class just a couple weeks ago where I just said, I'm not talking, right? I typed it into the whiteboard, and the students, oh, please, sir, tell us where to go, right? It's there, it's on the board, look at the board. And in the end, they all did it, right? And we got through everything, we checked it, I got all the correct answers without talking. So it really works. I would recommend trying it every now and then, right? Push the students to manage their own learning. Nearpod, Kahoot, these things are great, right? But they are teacher-centered. You can do the student-centered thing, but most of the time we use them in the teacher-centered way. Socrative or Socrative is a nice alternative where they work at their own pace, and the race is just about how many correct answers they get. Okay. Thanks, Sakina. So the one limit with Socrative is that the free version only allows 20. It only allows 20 students. All right. So the last point with pushing boundaries just has to do with what our students actually know. I think a lot of us, we say they don't have the background knowledge, and we accept that. But when it comes to technology, a lot of times we think that because they're always holding on to these things, that they're masters of technology. And they aren't, right? Most of them, they never worked on a laptop before. They type like this. Okay, so this teacher's talked about just bringing little things into the class, right? Extra little assignments, little side bits, right? When you finish it, you need to attach it to an email, give it a subject, and that sort of thing. I found OneDrive is great for that, right? You can oversee what they're doing and make sure they're learning a bit more of the etiquette and these kinds of things, right? Putting things in the proper folders. All right, the last point, again, I know I'm very short on time, has to do with reflection. Everything we've talked about up to this point was the benefit of reflection. These interviews were quite reflective. Thank you, Doctor. But one of the things we do tend to do a lot when we think about our students is to generalize. Okay, this first example talked about in the same semester, this teacher had two very, very different groups. And if they weren't careful, they could have really lumped them all with that first group. Okay, the other has to do with the use of the word they. Right? Whenever we use they, almost whenever, it turns out negative. Okay, and we generalize and say they never do this, they never do that. So we just want to be aware of that. Be careful when you're doing that sort of thing. Okay, so there we are right at the end. Here are all the main themes again. Okay, hopefully you've been able to find something, okay, in each of those that maybe you can put into your practice, or maybe that you already are doing, and there's a bit of reinforcement. So I hope that's how it's worked for you. Okay, the one last thing I just wanted to bring in, just because, okay, this is my dad coming out. I'm going to get a bit cheesy, right? When we think about our experience as learners, right? You're going to remember your great teachers, the teachers who left an impact on you, right? And the first thing, probably they did things a bit differently, right? They stood out in some way or another. But the biggest thing that teachers affect their students with is showing they care, right? Showing the students that they matter, right? And so even in these little things, right, you have to be able to do this after you graduate. That's why I keep telling you, okay? And the students are going to take that on board, okay? And that's why we have all of these different memes about teachers and how we teach from the heart and everything else, right? You don't see that for other careers. Teaching is different. Okay, so take a few minutes, reflect on it. Hopefully we can find one of these little spaces to put into our own practice. Okay, and thank you very much for your time. If you'd like a copy of this, please email me. It should go up on YouTube as well though, but I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate your time. Thanks again. Thanks everybody for your comments, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.